Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends. This is episode 200 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. My name is Byron. I've got Gary with me. Gary, how you doing, my man?
Oh, I'm doing great. I never thought we'd get to episode 200, a very big special episode. We could have never made it this far, without all of our fans here who listen to us each and every week and support us. So, a big thanks to everybody listening.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And you guys have been great. Gary's right. Without you guys listening, without you guys sometimes supporting us financially by buying our products or on Patreon, or supporting us emotionally by commenting on things and sending us emails saying how you enjoyed an episode, all these things have helped us get to episode 200, or even just listen to the show and maybe telling a friend. That's been huge. Yeah, go ahead.
What's even crazy is I remember back earlier, in our career here, we were new at this. We had no clue how to do audio or whatever. And I remember some guy listening to us who's practices jiu-jitsu and sent us an email, said he's a sound technician or audio expert, and helped us out there too. I mean, it's just incredible the people you meet, and the people are willing to help out. I mean, for nothing, for free. I mean, we don't make money here, and the guy's just like, hey, I'll help you out and make your sound quality a little bit better. So just incredible. People just willing to, give us their expertise and help us out.
Yeah, and that was Eric, and thanks very much, Eric, for doing that. And we've had several people kind of help out with that. Sound quality might sound a little different today. Gary, why is that?
Well, I just happen to not be on Skype here. I am on vacation, and where I'm at, first of all, I did forget, my microphone and headphone, and we ran into a bad time with, trying to schedule all this with me going away on vacation. And so I am on a cell phone today. So we do apologize for if the audio does not sound as great as it normally does.
But it sounds good enough, and we have Gary. That's the main thing.
Probably would have been a better show without me, Byron.
Probably not. I don't want to do this without you, Gary. This is too much fun.
Oh, well, thank you. Make me feel special.
That's right. And another way you could feel special is if you get an email delivered to your inbox every week with all the show notes from the current podcast episode. Go to our website or our Facebook page and sign up for our email list, and every week we'll send you the show notes. We'll let you know what's happening, and just basically keep you connected with the show. Pretty simple and pretty easy.
Speaking of special, we forgot to, we got talking about our 200th episode.
Yeah.
And, talking about me being on vacation, so a special episode. And we have Korbett Miller on. I know we forgot to mention that right off the bat, but, we've had Korbett on before. It was an incredible show. We were trying to figure out who to get for the 200th episode. And, we looked at each other and we said Korbett Miller. We had such a great time before. So stay tuned, and we're going to have not part two, but second time Korbett's been on the show. So definitely stay tuned for the interview.
Yeah,
the show.
Really love having Korbett on. It's his focus and what he's talking about with teaching kids is really going to have like that long-lasting ripple effect over the next 20, 30, 40 years in jiu-jitsu. The way that things are going to change, the way that the current kids are going to become the next generation of leaders and athletes. It's just going to be amazing. So, yeah, Korbett, he's really bringing the next generation up and helping do that. And we're happy to be part of that process and help get what he's talking about out. If you own a school or help teach kids, these are all things that are going to be great to hear today. And it's just something that is I'm really excited about getting behind him and supporting him with that. Also, Gary, we're thanking the listeners, and they are definitely a huge factor to our success in reaching this milestone, episode 200. Also, I have to thank all the guests we've had in the past. And we definitely can't list everybody, but I'm always impressed when I email somebody, hey, would you like to be on the show? I get a hold of somebody, and they say yes. Somebody like Korbett Miller or any number of the guests we've had. I don't know if it hasn't been. I don't know what the count is, because some episodes we have more than one guest. Some episodes we don't have any guests, but it should be right around 200, I would guess. But a huge thank you to anybody who's appeared on the show as a guest, and it's been a great learning experience for us to have all these people on the show.
Yep, and you can tell we're getting bigger, too, as we get more and more people emailing us wanting to be on the show. They've got something going on. So that's always, if you have something to bring to the show and you'd like to be on it, definitely send us an email, and we can see if we can make that work.
Yep, we still like to have athletes, we like to have top-level coaches, and then occasionally we like to have normal people who have a story to share and are highly relatable. And I think that there's room on this podcast for all of those categories. Now, we'll probably get 20 or 30 emails tomorrow from people who just want to be on the show and have this crazy story or this interesting thing that they have discovered about their jiu-jitsu, and we won't be able to get everybody on. But that being said, we're always happy to have the occasional basic listener that has something to share with the audience. So that's fun.
And also, like we were talking about the support of the show, another way you can support besides just listening is to check out audiobook. Your first year in BJJ, it's 2.5 hours of content, and it's only $11.99. The proceeds support the show. As Byron always says, keep this brick floating. Basically, it's going to walk you through your first year of jiu-jitsu, and that's a tough year. There's a lot of drop-off during that time, and our goal, our mission with this podcast is to grow jiu-jitsu. We want more and more people to train, and if we can get you through that first year, there's going to be more people on the mat, which is going to bring smiley faces to both Byron and I. But there's definitely a lot of different chapters, anywhere from trying to find the right school to preparing for your first competition. So definitely check out the link there in the show notes and check it out. It gets great reviews, and hopefully you'll buy it and like it.
There you go. And I really think you do. I haven't had anybody complain about not liking the audiobook your first year of jiu-jitsu, so I think it's helped out a lot of people.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have used that terminology.
No,
it
it's
makes
okay.
It sound like it's... you never want to put not liking in something when you're selling it.
Gary the Master Salesman, yes.
Yeah, as one of our previous guests, Brian Marvin, who's been on the show maybe twice, he talks about ABC. And in the sales business, they always talk about it, always be closing. But in jiu-jitsu, as Brian Marvin says, always be choking. And I think I choked a little there by talking about not liking.
Oh, don't be too hard on yourself. Gary, we've been doing this for a little while, and you have to, same thing with you have to occasionally just laugh at yourself and say, hey, that was funny, or kind of odd. And,
yeah.
You've done probably 100 or so things about the audiobook, or probably not that. We didn't start off with the audiobook, but done it many, many times, and many of them have been like amazing. And this one I thought was also good. It's just, I like having style. Some podcasts they air like a pre-recorded promo or advertisement. I think it's fun that we kick it around every time and talk about it, and it just kind of keeps it lively.
Yeah, each week we have to figure out from the cusp, and it keeps our brains from going into dementia status. So it keeps us fresh, just like donuts, how we like them delivered, hot and fresh.
That's true. Our quote is a little bit old. It's not a brand new quote, but that's okay. It's from a legend. Isn't that right, Gary?
It's definitely from a legend, a guy named Babe Ruth. And Byron, I forgot to write down the quote. So if you could, say it for our audience here, please. Yep.
Yeah. So usually Gary is at home on Skype, and he's got all the notes in front of him. He's really going the extra mile this time. He's on his vacation. He's on a phone. He's taking his precious vacation time away, and really appreciate that. So got to thank Gary for being here with me for 200 episodes. And man, I almost forgot to do that. That would be thanks, Gary, man. Couldn't have done it without you, man.
That just brought a tear to my eye, Byron.
Yeah,
Thank
right. Anyway, Gary, the quote here from Babe Ruth: Never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game.
And that is so true. You see people who don't want to do something just because they're not good at it. It's not just sports, it's life too. You can talk about, not taking a job because you're afraid you can't do it. Not getting out on the mat because you're afraid you're not going to be very good at it. And, think how much we're going to waste in life if we don't just take that chance, just jump in and try it. And, I can think back to when I first started jiu-jitsu. I'd heard about jiu-jitsu and, watching Hoist Gracie and the early UFCs, and I wanted to try it. And I found out there was a jiu-jitsu school in town, and, I said, yeah, I'm going to go on down there and try it. And my first day, I go on down to try it, and I drove right on by and came right home. I was too scared to jump. I didn't take the chance. And, but it kept nagging me, so the next week I said, hey, I'm going to do it. And I had enough guts to, try it that time. Like I said, the first time I was a little nervous and didn't stop. I just drove by. But the second time I stopped, went in, and, the rest is history. And if I didn't, take that chance, because I was terrible. And, rolling with Byron, he'll still say I'm terrible. But, it doesn't matter as long as I have fun. And I had fun. And, it's something I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And if I didn't, just take that chance, boy, I can't believe what I'd be missing out on. And, how much I've learned, how much better shape I've got into. And, just learn a new art. You can't beat it.
I think most of our listeners train jiu-jitsu. I know that there are definitely some that are listening who are interested in jiu-jitsu and for one reason or another haven't started yet. Definitely, if you could just kind of pass that hurdle, don't hold yourself back. You don't have anything to be afraid of as far as not doing good at jiu-jitsu. You're not going to do good at jiu-jitsu because you don't know it yet and don't have that big unreasonable expectation of coming in there and being great at something that you've never done before. Come in there and learn how and train and to meet the team that is near you. You'll have a good time. Gary, you also, I'm almost called you Jerry. Jerry, is that your name? Is your name Jerry? It's only been 200 episodes. Gary.
Well, some people do call me the Jerry Springer of jiu-jitsu, so maybe that's what you're talking about.
Always getting on fights on a stage.
Yep.
But you mentioned not being afraid to take a job or something like that, and I think that's a good example of some people let fear hold them back. I read a study, and I hate just saying that because it's so lame to say that, but somebody did a study about the upper executives and people who are high up in companies and doing well, and something that they found that was common is that they took positions they weren't 100% qualified for. And they applied for jobs that they weren't 100% qualified for. So you might see a job application and you might see these 10 things. And yeah, 7 of those things I'm qualified for, but these last 3 that are on here, I don't have that certificate, or I don't have this, haven't had 7 years of doing this experience. I've only had 3 or something like that. Well, the people who are getting a lot of success in the business world or whatever, they apply for those positions anyway and they go for them aggressively. And they just let the chips fall where they may. Sometimes they miss them, sometimes they get them. And same thing if you're trying to work up the ladder at work to apply for a position you're not quite qualified for, it probably isn't a terrible idea. If you're nearly ready and you'd be a good applicant for that spot, they would probably respect your enthusiasm and your willingness to get after something like that. And really just shows that you're putting your hat in the game early. And I don't know. I think that's an interesting thing that that blank study that I had read a while back noted that people who are high up in companies have not been afraid to apply for things that they weren't qualified for.
Yeah, I was going to say, just like myself, I remember, I definitely am not qualified for, but I did apply to become the President of the United States. I didn't get a call back or anything. But, I was like, hey, I'm just going to put myself out there, and who knows, maybe I'll get lucky and get an interview.
I think you did get lucky, and now you're a podcaster with with the actual job, not the president.
Yeah, I never really had to apply for this job either. And, it was something I didn't even know what a podcast was. And see, look what the rest is history.
Yep, you've been trying to wiggle out of it for 200 episodes in a row.
But Byron won't let me.
Take in this quote. Yeah, I won't even give you a break on vacation, Gary. Man,
Yeah, he's slave driver.
Pretty ruthless over here. Taking this quote to jiu-jitsu, is there that person that's on the mat that always beats you, or just has your number? That you just can't seem to get your game going against them. Don't be afraid to keep rolling with that person. They may not be the most fun and enjoyable roles for you when you slap hands and okay, nothing I'm going to do is going to work. But don't let that keep you from rolling with the person. Still get that experience and still do your best. And those roles sometimes could be a lot of growth. Not always. Sometimes you just get smashed and you don't learn anything. Sometimes they're so far out of your range of skill level, you end up doing things that are kind of desperate and may not be that smart or in your game plan. But if you can kind of keep yourself trying to do what's right while you're with somebody who's significantly better than you, don't let the fear of striking out keep you from getting on the mat, playing baseball. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything. It's life on the mat. You could take it to relationships, getting married. I've heard of people say they're afraid of getting married, because of this and that. And, they finally took that step, having a kid. I remember, I did wait, longer to have kids than most people. It was just because I was afraid. I didn't know if my finances were in order. I didn't know if I was ready. And, shoot, I'll never be ready. And same thing with jiu-jitsu, was I really ever ready? I chickened out the first time I tried to go. But, hey, just jump into it, have fun. And the rest is history. If you like it, you'll stick with it. But, let's try it. But, you bring up a good point, too. I'm just thinking of starting jiu-jitsu. But like you said, if somebody of much higher level than you and you get on the mat with them. And don't be afraid to do that either. It's going to be a learning process. You're going to learn. And it also, when I get smashed really bad and get, absolutely destroyed, it just makes me realize how much more there is to learn. This is a sport you're going to learn every day. I don't care if you've been training, 20, 25 years, you're still going to learn. And that's the cool thing about it. Somebody's going to teach you something. You're going to learn something that you didn't know before. And, it's infinite. It doesn't stop. And we've just got so much room to improve and grow and get better. So that's another aspect I like of this sport so much.
Yep, and just like for life as in baseball, you get 4 strikes before you're out. So, might as well swing 3 times crazy.
No wonder you weren't very good at baseball, Byron.
Why is that?
It's 3 strikes and you're out.
3 strikes?
Not 4.
What?
Were you playing Amish rules?
I don't know. I think I wasn't playing much baseball at all, Gary.
I think there's no problem. When we first found this quote, and I was like, hey, this is from Babe Ruth. Byron thought it was from the guy who started the candy bar.
Oh, yeah.
I had to correct him.
Yep. You don't want to strike out with that candy bar.
Yep. But, I just thought, we're reminiscing about our 200th episode. One of Byron's favorite movies is The Sandlot, and they talk about the great Bambino.
Yeah.
And we had black belt Will Horniff, who was on that show, who was in that movie, also on the show. So, the 7 degrees of BJJ Brick.
There we go. It's just amazing who all we've had on the show. Classic movie Sandlot. You can listen to the interview by one of the guys that was in that and is now a black belt, Will Horniff. So if you haven't heard that one yet, check it out. It's fun to go back and I've had a lot of good times watching that movie. My sister and I used to watch it a lot as kids.
And Byron actually wears a hat just like the star of the show did, at the start before Benny the Jet gave him a new hat. So Byron has that exact same hat, and he has to use it so his nose doesn't get sunburned.
Nice. The hat Gary's referred to in the movie is like a super long bill, keep my nose from getting burned too bad. It's a very good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, check out the previous episode with Will Horneff, or check out the movie with Will Horneff.
Yeah, he's in both. One of them talks about jiu-jitsu more. One of them is a little bit more towards the baseball side, and is a great family film.
Well, just watching back to back, have jiu-jitsu and baseball. What's better than that?
Can't go wrong with that. Speaking of cannot go wrong, before we get to the interview, I want to mention our friends are doing a BJJ summer camp here in Kansas. It's in Council Grove between August 18th through 20th. I just want to give them a shout out if you are in the area. It's got 4 black belts: Jason Burchard, Jake Smith, Derek Bohai, and Joe Wilk, all teaching jiu-jitsu. It's going to be an amazing weekend. Unfortunately, Gary and I will not be able to get up there, but if we were able to, we would be. And so just this is the last time we could mention that on the show. It's going to be a great time and a great opportunity to train jiu-jitsu, fun outside, camping, swimming, and I hear they have air conditioning. We'll put a link to the website so you can learn more about it there if you're interested or in the area. Check it out, my friends.
Yeah, check it out. A bunch of seminars and barbecue too. So good times.
Absolutely. Gary, more good times right ahead with our interview with Korbett Miller. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
As a side hobby, I often use my grip strength to go rock climbing. Instead of using a harness, I just use my BJJ belt. I know what you were thinking, but don't worry about me. My belt never comes untied. I am the only person with a flip phone iPhone. Oh, it's not what you think. It does not fold. If I flip my phone over, there is an adolescent digital jiu-jitsu turtle shell that protects it from damage. I name my phone Van Gogh. I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring back to the podcast Korbett Miller. Korbett, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Byron, for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great being with you last time, so looking forward to today.
Yeah, and it's really great to have you. You're really knowledgeable with a lot of things dealing with jiu-jitsu, but you're really specializing in teaching kids jiu-jitsu. Not that you can't, you obviously you're good at teaching adults as well, but really if you're looking for help with teaching kids jiu-jitsu, you're definitely somebody that is able to do that. We've had Korbett's Kids, a little segment on here. We have some more of those still to go. I've just, they're kind of, if you have a question relating to kids jiu-jitsu, send it to me, and then eventually I'll ask that to Korbett when our schedules match up, and
Sure.
That little segment's been a lot of fun, and that's kind of been some. It's been really enjoyable for me to have you on the first time and have you on a couple of times since then in that little segment there. But welcome back to the show. I don't want to talk too much here because I want to let you get going. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and just a little quick introduction, Korbett?
Well, I'm a lifetime martial artist. I got started when I was 11 years old, and I'm going to be 47 years old next week. And it's been a great ride for me. I've actually had my school for the last 20 years. I got started in stand-up martial arts, and I was actually was recruited out of college. Actually, I was already doing martial arts for a long time, and at the age of 23, I was recruited to come out here to Seattle and literally live in the back of one of Bruce Lee's original students' schools here in Seattle. So I got a chance to work with him. And, the whole thing with Bruce Lee is that, cross-training was really encouraged. So that's right about the time that, people started hearing about jiu-jitsu, and I got involved in jiu-jitsu. I remember when I got married 21 years ago, I remember triangle choking my brother at my bachelor party. So it's like, I remember I have fond memories of the Wild West days in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's kind of interesting seeing Grandmaster Rickson Gracie getting his red belt. I did a lesson with Rickson in 1992, and I always joke, it's sort of like, people didn't really understand Rickson at the time, and I didn't understand Rickson. I mean, I was a white belt at the time, and I remember at the time I thought it would be like a 4-year-old playing chess with Gary Kasparov, a great chess grandmaster, right? But now that I'm a black belt, I think it would be more like my cat playing chess with Gary Kasparov. So I've been around the block in the jiu-jitsu community. I received my black belt under Professor Shanji Hibero. I competed as a masters athlete. I don't compete much anymore, but at the same time, I'm kind of redoubling my efforts to really help grow the profession of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and especially, helping school owners to really understand and really enjoy the Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle. So people say that word a lot, but I think it's something that being able to express yourself through jiu-jitsu, being able to kind of have a school that will support you and your family. To be quite honest with you, I'm going through a transition in my life right now. My second daughter just turned 18 years old last week. And, I can't imagine a better profession to raise children in and really enjoy yourself, but also have the means to really have a great schedule, but to really feel happy about what you're doing and bringing this magnificent art into people's lives. And, I think, the other conversation is really, if you want to do that, if you're not teaching and having a thriving, youth program, you're really missing the boat, because there's a lot. I mean, the youth market is much bigger than the adult market. And it's something that, if we can really learn to be able to approach the youth training in the right manner, I think it will really put us on par with the other arts that can attract kids so much more easily in many ways.
Why is it that you say that the youth market is much bigger than the adult market?
Well, I mean, it's sort of like, there's lots of boxing fans, right? But I mean, how many thriving, real boxing gyms, people that practice, there's a lot of fitness boxing gyms, but I mean, people don't like to go in and get smacked around, and even MMA for that matter. I mean, MMA is popular, but it's not as popular as, let's say, the karate schools with kids. I mean, there's schools, there's a karate school in my neck of the woods that literally has 1,000 students. And out of that 1,000 student census, he probably has 800 kids. And it's not that, we can't do that. I mean, my school has right around 300 students. But at the same time, it's something that I think it's something that just in terms of the market, I mean, it's the market for youth martial arts it's just greater for kids. It's easier to attract. There's it's almost like it is an acceptable alternative for, an after school activity. And I think especially Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, has so many advantages to other activities or other martial arts for that matter, that it's just silly that it's not as widely practiced as it is. But I think that's changing. I think if you look at the tournaments that are taking place, there's Fight to Win Pro, these even traveling tournaments. There was kids headlining some of these events that I went to last Friday with my students. So I think it's becoming more acceptable, but I just know in terms of what we have to offer, it should be something that is a no-brainer for people to choose Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And I think, looking at how kids and adults work and go home and relax. Kids do things. They sign up for programs. They can sign up for lessons. They're constantly in certain things. So I think that bridging that gap to taking swim lessons or signing up for soccer league to jiu-jitsu, that's so small to get them to go from soccer to jiu-jitsu.
Well, you think about it too. I literally have a student. Well, the person that works on me with this project for teaching youth Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is one of my students. He's actually partnering it with me. His name is Brandon Miller. He's not related to me. My name's Korbett Miller. But Brandon Miller's not related to me. He's like a son to me in many ways. But he's a great example of what we should want. He's a brown belt in BJJ. He's like an advanced student in our stand-up curriculum. He's been a student of mine since he was 8 years old. And 3 weeks ago, I just saw him walk across the stage and get his master's degree in education from Seattle University. And by the way, he's a fire breather. He's like just this crazy great athlete that is a shining example of what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu can do, or what martial arts can do. Forget Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what martial arts can bring into someone's life. And so again, I have other students. I have students that have been with me since they were 4 years old, and now they're juvenile blue belts. They're like 16, 17 years old that have been with me that long. You can have an extreme amount of longevity, especially if a kid gets passionate about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because the journey's long. And it's something that I think, if we can ignite a passion in a student young, that's going to carry them over, and they're going to be a student for life.
If there's a jiu-jitsu gym and a karate gym, or just a generic, some other martial art gym, what does jiu-jitsu bring to those kids that most martial arts don't deliver?
Well, I think it's a two-way street. What can Brazilian jiu-jitsu deliver that the karate schools can't? But what are the karate schools delivering that the jiu-jitsu schools aren't, right? Okay, so what I think in terms of what Brazilian jiu-jitsu can bring to a student, first off, I teach striking. I've trained in Thailand before. I mean, I've walked in those circles since I was a young man. Striking is something that it's almost frowned upon, and it's something too that I think parents are becoming more and more conscious of concussions. And so, striking arts, compared to Brazilian jiu-jitsu is something that people can really prefer that. Plus, I think that if people just do a little bit of research in terms of the effectiveness of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, especially around ideas like bullying and the realistic self-defense curriculum that can be taught to kids, I think it really has a leg up on those other schools and other approaches. Plus, it's fun. I mean, just wrestling, grappling is just fun. Kids are natural grapplers. I remember when my daughters were much younger, if I would walk over to pick up a piece of paper on my knees, they'd have their hooks in and trying to choke me or something, just playing around, right? Kids just naturally like to roughhouse like that. So being able to channel that into a way is something that's really neat for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just heard something really kind of neat, and by Jocko Willink, the person who's got the famous best-selling book, Extreme Ownership, and he's got his own podcast. But he's also a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he's also a Navy SEAL. He's a decorated Navy SEAL. He's just this amazing athlete, super soldier. And he was talking to his son, and he said, his son asked him, he says, "Dad, are superpowers real?" And Jocko said, "No, son." He goes, "No, there is one superpower. And this is coming from a guy that's jumped out of airplanes in the dark and landed in the ocean." This guy said, the superpower is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, I mean, as a jiu-jitsu practitioner, you can understand that. I mean, and again, not to poo-poo other martial arts, but if you're a good purple belt, a legit purple belt or a brown belt, I mean, and no one has an idea about jiu-jitsu, you can control them like you're a magician. So I think there's that, part of it that we're teaching real martial arts that can be a functional skill set for kids that really addresses self-defense, but also can really improve their confidence by giving them the superpower, if you will, of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But here's the challenge. Why then does the karate school have 3 times to 4 times the enrollment that the Jiu-Jitsu school has? This is why. Because they understand that as much as it's about teaching a great martial art, they also understand that there should be other conversations about things like life skills and understanding what that word means. It's not just a buzzword. There should be some sort of life skills training that's provided to the students right beside their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training. And I think, for concrete examples of things like grit and self-reliance, and the growth mindset, there is no martial art that teaches that like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does. But it's important to be able to bring that out to people, to make sure that you have a methodology. And that's one of the things that's my mission, is to really be able to offer school owners kind of done-for-you ways of implementing life skills training into their program that's very specific to jiu-jitsu, that's not recycled from the karate school, because jiu-jitsu is different. We know that it's different. So there has to be approaches like the karate school is using that's been adapted to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu programs so that they can compete with those other schools. Because the thing that a lot of people don't understand, and since I've spoken with you, we've brought a lot of member schools into the Kids BJJ Revolution program, and it's been neat because one of the things that we talk about is trying to make our program attractive not just to the students but also to the parents. Because the parents are the people that are going to be able to kind of keep them involved in the program. Maybe when they want to quit, maybe when they're getting distracted by other things. But if the parents see the values as being almost like a finishing school for kids, and that they're getting this input of their character development, the code of the samurai or whatever you want to call it, right? If they can you really have an effective way of teaching that and helping the kids to understand what those words mean, then all of a sudden you're building a much greater value for the family for keeping their student in your program, which is, I think, critical for the school owner that is willing to attract a lot of kids.
Yeah, you mentioned, and I just kind of want to get an idea of how important it is to have a strong kids program. If you are running a martial arts school, and I think a lot of people find themselves in the boat of, I like jiu-jitsu a lot, I'm pretty good at it. You know, you get to a certain level and you want to open up your own school, and you do that and you teach other people like you. But if you're missing out on the kids, you're missing out on a large part of I guess the income, and a large part of actually benefiting people with jiu-jitsu. I mean, it helps both.
There's no doubt about it.
And that
plus, if you look long term, right? I mean, you know, I love it that a lot of many of my blue belts and some of my purple belts, and even a couple of my brown belts, were kids with me. Because here's the other conversation, right? I mean, how many like adults join, or like, you know, like late teen, early 20s, and they get to a certain level and they may go to another school, right? They've not established that rapport and that loyalty with the professor. And why is that? Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. But I think if you can get a kid that really kind of has that affinity for the instructor, that's kind of been brought up in that environment of life skills training where you talk about things like courage and self-discipline and all those things, then it really kind of solidifies that person's role in your school. And it should be founded on, you know, their ability to be coached at a high level and to really bring them through the ranks and to be a very caring and compassionate instructor. But I also think that just from being able to benefit the people that are going to need it the most. I mean, it's really kids. I mean, you know, I think, and again, I'm not a curmudgeon. I'm not this guy that's like, you know, get down on millennials or whatever. But I think, you know, our culture in many ways has become soft. And I think there's, you know, I think I spoke a little bit about this book last time when I was on the podcast. It's called The Mindset. And it's this book by Carol Dweck, who's a famous Stanford psychologist. And I think every martial arts instructor or jiu-jitsu instructor should read this, because it's actually a great indictment for students learning to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because it talks about, you know, having this mindset of you either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And, you know, it's the growth mindset is really about, you know, efforts rewarded, you know, attempts are rewarded. It's not just about outcomes, but it's really about, you know, making sure that you understand that your skill or your intelligence is not fixed, but it's a function of effort and growth through like struggle and discipline. And it's just a fantastic book. And I think jiu-jitsu really talks about that, because again, you know, you can talk about grit all you want. That's another big buzzword in education is, you know, mental toughness, right? Well, learn how to escape someone's knee ride, right? You know, put someone underneath knee on belly, and, you know, they're going to understand what it's like to be comfortable with being uncomfortable really quickly. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, learning how to struggle and escape and be mindful and be deliberate in your approaches, I think are all great life lessons that kids need to be able to grow up in this 21st century world that we're living in.
Yeah, a lot that they get out of jiu-jitsu. But even just from a business perspective, you said you have about 300 students.
Yep. How
many of your students are kids?
225.
Wow, it sounds like a number that you have. You actually,
well, you know, again, I mean, the thing about me too is that I've had my school for 21 years. I've been in the same location for 20 years. I have no delusions of grandeur. I've not like read an internet marketing book and like become a social media star, and I'm not going to try to make people into martial arts millionaires, which I think is just silly. I want to help people to develop this jiu-jitsu lifestyle. And for me, the market is kids. It is kids. It's like the difference between Ferraris and Chevys in terms of markets, right? You know, Ferraris are cool and they're like fast and they're, you know, spiffy looking. But there's a whole lot more Chevys sold than Ferraris, right? Just the market is bigger for Chevys than Ferraris. And so when you look at like the total amount of participants in the martial arts sphere, it's almost like 70 to 80% kids. And really that's good news. That's good news for the typical gym owner, because if you're teaching 100 adults, you should be able to get at least 100 to 200 kids in that program. It's always amazing to me. Like, I've been working with these schools all over the world, and it's amazing that people, like, they don't even use their school. Their school isn't even open till like 5:30 at night. Whereas in reality, like, my school actually starts to wind down at about 5:30. I mean, the busiest time in my school is like 3:45, 4 o'clock. I mean, not 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So it's actually good news if they can really wrap their head around being able to not dumb down their curriculum, but smarten it up. Because I think there's a lot to be said about not so much what you teach, but how you teach it to kids, which makes the biggest difference.
You mentioned something I hadn't really thought about. If I'm trying to schedule, okay, I want my adults class to be at this time and kids class to be this, or beginners kids to be this time, what time? How do you find that time? What's a good way to kind of narrow down, make that business decision about when to have?
You get on the internet and you find out when the first elementary school gets let out in your area, and then put the class 15 minutes after it, and that'll be one of your busiest classes. Why? Because parents want to get their kid in a program, out of a program, and get home to where they can cook the meal, sit down for dinner, and do homework and do all those things. So that's actually some really easy system that you can do, and people will be surprised at how busy that first time slot is, because people really want to get their activities out of the way. But the other conversation too is there's also a need for an after 6 program, because a lot of parents don't get off work until 5:30, so they can't show all the kids around. So that's, you can almost kind of book in 2 nice sized classes there end to end. The challenge, though, for a lot of schools is that they don't have the space to devote to that, or their adult program is in full swing at that later time slot. So it's something they have to kind of do. But scheduling is really important for sure.
Yeah, if you have a big enough gym to have a kids class going on on one set of mats and an adult on the other side, that would be really easy. But if you're having a typical gym, you need to figure out what time you want certain people to be on the mat space at certain times. But I hadn't thought about that early, that mid-afternoon time. School gets out, parents pick up the kids. Let's take them to grappling and get them to do that.
Jiu-jitsu, get their great workout in, and get home and do homework. It's awesome.
So that would have been one of my key mistakes off the bat. What are some common pitfalls that people who are starting or doing a kids program, what are some common things that they do wrong?
Well, I think they start like a youth program, and then they teach like they teach an adult, and then they wonder why the kids are lost, or they just can't learn jiu-jitsu, right? That's kids can't learn jiu-jitsu. But again, it's really being able, in our Kids BJJ Revolution program, we have a done-for-you curriculum planners. Literally, it's like day by day, class by class, that has we teach on command for our junior students, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then we also, for youth students, meaning like our 8 to 12-year-old students, and then our 4 to 7-year-old students, our little grapplers, have a different way of teaching. And I call it the flow model. And this is a great example. If you were to give an explanation of a jiu-jitsu technique to a 6-year-old child, it may as well be, when you're talking, Charlie Brown's teacher talking to those kids. Remember, and martial arts instructors, I don't care if they're jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or karate, they have a tendency to love to hear the sound of their own voices, but they forget that it's like kids can follow you and mimic you much more easily than they can follow directions of a multi-step sweep or guard pass, right? So I'd use this model called flow. Flow means the kids follow and listen. So they're all kind of up in front of me. They're following and listening to what I do, whether it's a hip bump sweep or a double leg takedown or an X pass. They're working through this with me, and I'm mimicking it. I'm literally like, okay, raise your left hand, put your right hand, lift up with your hips. So they're following along with me and listening. And kids can do that much more easily than try to replicate some long-winded explanation that you do as an instructor. Then the O stands for on the instructor. So once the kids can do the technique, they've followed and listened, then they do it on an instructor. That way the instructor can make sure that they understand how to do the move and give any feedback and correction, and make sure there's no one that's doing it in an uncontrolled way. And then the W is with a partner. So then the kids can kind of work on that with a partner, almost doing like an on-command structure. And I'll talk about teaching on command in a second. So if an instructor can get behind that, it's a much more effective way of teaching that 4 to 7-year-old group. Flow, follow and listen on the instructor with a partner. So that's just an example of kind of teaching in an age-appropriate way, because you don't want to just be like spouting off some 2-minute diatribe about, the merits of a tripod sweep, because the kids aren't going to get it. The 6-year-old is going to be checking out, looking at other places. So that's just one way that we kind of treat the students differently. But it's not teaching them less. It's teaching them the right way. And it's kind of meeting the child where they're at, not where you want them to be, which I think is a challenge for a lot of instructors as well.
Yeah, I've definitely felt or made the mistake of trying to teach a child like I would teach an adult, and you have their attention for a little while, but quickly they kind of zone out and they can't listen to the explanations.
There's a reason why kids shows are a half an hour long, on television, right? It's because of their attention span. It's not, it's just because of the way that they are. And someone would even say that kids' attention spans have even shrunk even more with, advent of prevalence of gaming and phones and whatever. So again, it's something that you have to meet them where they're at, not where you want them to be, because you can get them where you want them to be. I mean, that should be really, what the goal of the program is. We don't award black belts to kids in our jiu-jitsu program. That doesn't happen. So what's the outcome that people are wanting for a youth Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program? And I always say this: it's like they sit down at their 17th birthday or 16th birthday, and they open up their presents, and inside of one of the presents, the kid is ready, is a blue belt. And the kids should be able to put on that blue belt if they've been a part of that school for 5, 6, 7 years as a child, and be able to function well as a blue belt once they've reached that age. So again, that's really the outcome for any of my programs that I do with the kids, is that I want them to have I want them to be brilliant at the basics in jiu-jitsu: fundamental passing, guard recovery, escapes, self-defense. Those are all things that, almost anyone can get their head around, is saying that, yes, it's not a Barambola. It's not like, worm guard, but what it is, it's the timeless jiu-jitsu that every person's going to need, whether they're doing those advanced things or not.
That makes up the core, I think, of a kids class and an adults class are those basics that need to be taught. And that's one great thing that you have, is which techniques to really focus on for the kids. And they may not all be the same as you're teaching the adults for the basic techniques. Are they pretty much the same, or do they?
Well, I mean, for me, it's like this. I mean, even with our curriculum that we have and our community that we have, I understand that there's people from Allianz, there's people from the Ibero Jiu-Jitsu Association, there's people that have just wide and varied backgrounds in the jiu-jitsu world. So what I've had to do is really kind of think about, there's certain common denominators. I mean, certain things about escaping, certain things about, guard recovery, certain things about, how to be able to work submissions or passes. These are all kind of ideas that are common to a lot of jiu, and people are going to need to adapt it. It's got to be something that the physical skills have to be something that can be adapted to a different school philosophy. And that's really something I really believe in, because I'm not going to tell someone to teach a certain way if they're, have a certain way that they do an underhook pass or a knee slice pass. But again, I think, to be able to get a student to where they can have that, those great skills, we have to make sure that we look at the approaches that we use. Because again, it's the container. It's not so much, what's in the container, but it's the container that you use to deliver the skill. It's the mechanism, right? So whether that's the flow model, whether that's teaching on command, I think all those things are ways in which we kind of have more appropriate ways of delivering that technical skill. But, at the end of the day, it's got to be fun. I mean, you can't just browbeat kids and make it negative and have it be something where it's like the instructor is obviously frustrated. And so, it's got to be something where the kids are interacting. And, I'm not averse to the kids playing games. We have like a whole battery of drills and games on our website that our member schools have access to. But they're games with a purpose. Like here's an example of a real simple game. We call it the guard game. So what it is it's a rope game. So I have like a little rope. I stretch it in the middle of the floor. It's about like knee height. And you get the kids on one side of the rope, and you put like a foam roller or something on the other side of the room. All the kids lie down. They put the kid in closed guard, and their heads are going toward the rope and toward where the foam roller's at. Then the kids have got to try to open up the legs and get out of the guard, jump over the rope, and grab the foam roller before anyone else does in their group, right? So that's a fun little exercise, but it's teach them about like breaking grips, opening a closed guard, like, and the person on the bottom is trying to keep their posture broken down and to be mentally tough and keep their grips together. And while the kids are doing this, it's bedlam. It's hilarious. And the kids are falling down. If they hit the rope, they've got to go all the way back over inside the closed guard and start over from zero. So I just don't want the kids running around and playing, duck, duck, goose. I want them doing things that have to do with jiu-jitsu. And I want them to do things that are going to make their skills better. At the same time, you'll hear them giggling. And there's nothing wrong with kids having fun. And I think it's something that if you can have the best of both worlds where it's, they've got great drilling and fun drilling paired up with great technical skills that they're learning, it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, the idea that it's got to be fun. The kids have to want to come back. I think that there's a lot of wrestling rooms in there where a lot of the kids aren't actually enjoying the process of learning how to wrestle, but they have had that parent that went through wrestling and they know it's going to be a very great skill for them to learn. And so the parent's just going to keep the kid in wrestling regardless of whether the kid is having fun. But in jiu-jitsu, It's a little bit newer as far as, most parents haven't trained jiu-jitsu, that I would imagine most haven't trained, that are bringing their kids in. So you can't rely on the parent to just keep pushing the kid. The kid needs to say, I want to go to jiu-jitsu today. I'm excited to be there and have that drive.
Right. And again, I think it's part of it is that, it's the environment. Is it a positive environment? It's something that, the kids are like learning new things, but there's a tension between newness and repetition. There's a conversation around varying the different drilling. One of the things that I really love to do with my kids is I do interval training with the kids. Once they've learned a technique a certain amount of times, they've got the mechanical skill down, we'll do rounds, but it'll be rounds of slow and right and fast and tight. And when it'll be like block training where they're just working on repping their X pass or their shin slide pass or their tripod sweep or their up and over sweep or their flower sweep. But there's, 20 seconds of slow and deliberate work. They're moving like they're on slow motion on a DVD and just like turning the kid over and going to the mount. And it's like 20 miles an hour. That's the speed that they go. And then the other rep is the other side of that is that they switch off their partner. They do it slow, and then it's fast and tight, and it's as fast as they can go. And it's going to not look as clean as when they were doing it slow and right. But, by the way, when you're, executing a technique in real life, it's, and it's when it's fast and tight, there's normally a little bit more roughness to it. And that's kind of like part of that drill. And, your listeners can do that with their kids today. And that would just be like a fun – and they love doing stuff like that. By the way, it's a great way of training, and I think even adults can benefit somewhat from that block training model as well.
Yeah, I like how you have all these names for things. That way, when you say slow and right or fast and tight, the kids know. Like you don't have to have a long explanation of what you're looking for. You need to bring the new kids up to speed, and then they're going. And I think that with kids and adults, having kind of those shortcuts as far as explaining the training in a way that is going to be semi-repetitive, like, we're doing this particular type of drill. It might change. You might do the slow, super slow motion with different techniques, but they know what you're looking for when they're hitting the mats.
Well, there's a lot to that. And I think, it's something that people, especially in jiu-jitsu, I think, so much to it that people forget that it's, repetition's the mother of skill. It's like I tell my athletes that are competing, it's like, man, you should be drilling your game plan so much that by the time that your matches roll around, you should be tired of doing that stuff, man. It's got to be like, so again, I think it's, with kids, it got to be different. I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with kids if they're prepping for a competition to be able to kind of, hone in their skill like that. But again, it's like, again, there's so many great benefits for jiu-jitsu for kids. I had a great experience at a tournament with a kid. Speaking of tournaments, a couple of months ago, it's just one of this kid's first new tournament. He's new at tournament play, and just like with a lot of schools, we don't emphasize headlocks as far as like a means of holding a student down, just because of people taking the back and whatever. But and consequently, we work on headlock escapes to an extent, but we sort of de-emphasize it. And since no one really works them that well, it's sort of like people don't really aren't as prepared as they should be sometimes. So I had this kid, the most earnest kid, just a super smart kid, a very good student. Of course, he draws a judo player, his first draw at this tournament, and he gets slapped right in Keisagatami, and this kid is holding him down like he knows how to work that Keisa really well. And if you've ever had a kid or it's another athlete that just gets put in that, if you get caught and you're late and you're not on your side, if your elbow isn't next to your body, it just sucks to get out of there, right? But when we talk about grit and growth mindset, that was so awesome to see this kid. This kid grew. This boy in many ways became a man in a small measure during this match that he had. It was something that, because he's listening to my coaching and I'm telling him to get on his side, hook his legs, scoot his hips away. And for 2.5 minutes, this kid was just being smothered. I mean, just pinned to the floor. They were circling around a circle. You can just imagine what it looked like, right? But in the last 30 seconds of the match, he got out, he passed that kid's guard and mounted him. And he won. So it's like tournament competition is not for every child, but man, when you have an experience like that, I mean, it's hard to say that a child could get that in other activities. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it just made me feel like, man, this is really awesome. So
yeah, that's a cool story, and it just shows the learned grit that kid had. That I don't know if you'd have put that same kid in there a year ago if he just would have quit and gave up.
No, hey man, I tell you, yeah, I mean, and it was funny, man. It was just like, it was awesome, and it was something too that again, it wasn't just great. I mean, he was listening to what I was doing. He was being deliberate, which is really what I want our students to be, and the parents were just beaming. And by the way, the dad was like I think he was like a high level investor in like Silicon Valley companies, and he just was complimenting, and he was like, man, I'm so glad that I've got my son in your program, because he is learning things here that he can't learn anywhere else. So again, when people are listening to this podcast, it's like, think about how you're impacting. And again, the adult could have the exact same learning experience, but man, how is that kid going to be equipped? How are they going to be like, able to kind of go into the world armed with that sort of experience? And I just, man, it's just like having a martial arts school. It's a very special occupation where we can really and dramatically improve the power of our adults. But if you can do it the right way, man, you can make an impression on a child that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, and that impression at such an early age has large impacts further down the road. Also, going back to that kid, stuck in that headlock or Keisagatami, the fact that he was able to even hear you is impressive to me. Sometimes an adult will be stuck in a position and they can't hear what you're saying, not just because their ears are covered, right, but just because they're in that zone of, I'm in trouble, I can't get out, and they get in that mental state of their ears aren't even working because they're fighting for their life.
It's so hard, especially when they're competing, right? Because again, like you could like roll all day and all night, you could like do tons of rounds, and it's not going to prepare you for the adrenal dump that you get when you go in to compete. I mean, and again, even if you go and do gym exchanges and you're with people that you don't know, it's still not the same. I mean, it's just a different thing. I mean, the only way you can prepare for it maybe like by doing sprints and someone shooting live ammo at you at the same time. It's like that mental component, that mental stress it's different, and I mean, it's something that it's hard to simulate, but again, I think it has value. It doesn't have value for everyone, and then some people just don't want to do it, and that's something you have to respect as well. And I think that's you don't want it just to be something that weeds the weak kids out. You want to make it sure it's something for everyone. So
Do you find that most parents want the kids to compete or just to train, or what do they expect out of their kids?
Don't compete. I mean, even in my school, it's like, you know, and again, when we have a tournament, I mean, you know, 250 or so kids, we will have probably like 30 to 40 kids go and compete. I mean, it's just, and you know, sometimes it's more than others, but like, it's just people don't. I mean, and it's hard too because, you know, again, I think with parents nowadays, it's like, at least in my area, it's like the most valuable commodity they have is time, and the idea of hanging around a gymnasium for an entire Saturday waiting for your child to go in for a single elimination tournament may not be the thing that they really want to do, you know? So, and it just sometimes just not the palate for the kid. Sometimes kid just doesn't want to deal with it. And, but some of my best kids have never like competed a day in their life, and they give the kids that are fire breathers that compete in my school the run for their money.
Is there a optimum age that if the parent is wanting the kids, let's say a parent's got 4 kids of 4 different ages, and they say, yeah, it'd be nice if they can get out there and compete. They would learn a lot from that experience. What age of group would you say is a good time to start?
I let them come. I mean, you know, gosh, like here at some of the tournaments in the Northwest, it's like I've seen kids like 4 and 5 years old going out there. I mean, granted, what are they doing at that age? Or they're just running at one another. I mean, it's really kind of cute. But I mean, you know, again, they are learning the game of it, and you know, I think the earlier they're exposed to it, I think actually the earlier they're exposed to it, the less, you know, anxiety they have, or they have the ability to think things through more easily. They don't just read into it like it's a zero-sum game of like, you know, it's a personal affront if they lose. You know, I mean, it's something that, you know, just, you know, having that the growth mindset about losing, you know, it's, you know, that's a big component of the growth mindset is that you either win or learn. Really, like losing is feedback, but so many people take losing as, you know, it's a commentary on who they are as a person, and that's again this whole idea. And I think we talked about this on the last podcast about effort praising versus person praising a child. And again, that's a part of the growth mindset is that, you know, when you praise a child, you praise their effort and strategy, not them as a person. In other words, if Johnny wins a tournament, you don't go to Johnny and say, Johnny, you're so amazing at jiu-jitsu. You say something to the effect of, Johnny, man, that was an amazing guard pass. Or, you know, that kid almost passed your guard, but man, you were like framing and shielding and recovering. You were on your edge, coming up to your knees. You just stuck with that. You were not letting him get to the side of you. I'm really proud of you. And again, the reason why you don't praise the child and you praise their effort is because at some point they're going to face a kid that has went to the pans and has maybe placed at the pans. And their outcome may not be as good as when they were doing the little local regional tournaments. And if the kid has been praised about, oh, you're so good at jiu-jitsu, what's going to happen when they lose to some kid that's like, you know, training at AOJ, right? They're going to like say, oh, I'm not good at jiu-jitsu. A kid that's been praised in terms of their effort and strategy will relate to, okay, I got beat, but I got beat because I wasn't on my edge. I wasn't going out to my knees. I didn't work my guard recovery the right way. So it's this simple mind idea of the simple mindset idea that can be a subtle shift for school owners and students that I think it's just seismic. It's seismic in the approaches that it can yield an instructor to really producing a great school.
Yeah, and I'm picturing it's not just for kids that are competing. It's if they're rolling, you're praising them and commenting about their performance or their technique or their effort,
or strategy.
Totally. So you don't have to compete to get those sort of feedback. You can get that anytime. Is there an age category where you let the kids start rolling, or do you prefer to play like the games and the drills that are a little more playful?
Well, again, for me, it's like, I mean, the 4 to 6-year-olds, I mean, and again, this is something that, again, in our community, we try to like, you know, be very careful about is submissions with kids. I think like, you know, younger kids, the little grapplers, I don't see any reason why a 4 to 7-year-old, unless they're going to be going to a competition and they have an extreme supervision of their skills, should have normal fare of submitting one another. I just don't think it's appropriate. I think they could do it on the instructors. I think that's totally okay. But there has to be like something where, you know, the other conversation is it going to hurt a child who's 4 to 7 years old to learn about the positional game of jiu-jitsu, passing the guard, getting to the mount? I mean, learning how to sweep off your back. I mean, those are things that I think probably a lot of adults could probably do with, right? Learning about the game of jiu-jitsu and the position game before they start going into the meat and potatoes of submitting people. So, but I think kids, as long as they're supervised in the right way and they understand, you can even create little mini games about, keep and sweep or pressure and pass with kids so they can understand what those words mean. And I think that's a great way of getting them involved with it. But again, I just think it's really important to make sure that submissions are something that are I've even heard like John Danaher talk about the same idea, that there's no reason to be like, having a kid working on a rear naked choke that's, a young child, because they're just, they don't necessarily need that. They'll get that as time goes on. But especially for like a school confrontation, I mean, I think it would be much more appropriate for a child to learn how to do a takedown, pass a kid's guard, get to the mount and hold them, than it would to be like, do an elbow pick, get to the kid's back and choke them. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. One will probably get you broken up, and the other one will probably get you expelled. Or
Yeah,
at least
exactly.
suspended.
And I think it's also like something that as a school owner, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take that risk? And I think it's important to make sure that you have that conversation with your staff and whatever. And these are all things, again, that's something that's really important to me, is that, I've created this community. The Kids BJJ Revolution is really, it's a website that has curriculum. It has games and drills. It has the little grappler curriculum with all the flow kind of ideas. It has, systems for your school about how to do an info call, how to do low cost and no cost marketing. It has all these things kind of wrapped up in it. But it also has a Facebook group, a private Facebook group where, I share ideas and other school owners share ideas, people that are in Australia, people that are in Costa Rica, people that are all over the United States that share ideas about how to build their youth program. Because I don't think you can learn how to have a successful school from a DVD. I don't think a one-off thing is it. I think it's something that you have to have a community of people, and it has to be an ongoing effort that people are trying to help one another to be able to grow that environment in your school. Because it is, I look at a school as like a living, breathing organism almost. I mean, and you've got to look at it in terms of how you're growing that school in a way to where you can celebrate your 5th anniversary, you can celebrate your 10th anniversary, you can get to 2 decades in business and be in the same place and have lots of gray hair like me. But it's something that I've not been able to do this by myself. I've had tons of consultants that have helped me out, in terms of pointing me in the right direction and giving me lots of resources, because I think that's where it's at, and it's got to be sustainable. It can't be that you're one easy trick to getting 100 students. Give me a break, man. It's like, I think the most students I've ever signed up in my life in 1 month has been like 15 students. It's like there's so much hyperbole in our industry. It's actually kind of interesting, because in the martial arts world, there's a whole industry about trying to make school owners more successful, and it's like a lot of it is kind of smoke and mirrors. It's things that I've seen in the stand-up world. People are trying to adapt over to the kids market, and it's interesting to see that. You have to look at it as a long-term thing. It's got to be something that you look at your school as being something that you want to take pride in and grow it to a level, or ethically and organically, so that you can, look back at it and say, man, this has been a great run, and I really feel good about the work that I've done.
Korbett, kind of maybe a more business side of things. When somebody brings in a kid or maybe a couple siblings to learn jiu-jitsu, and they have really no idea what they're going to be doing, breaking blocks or katas or whatever. Who's it more important to really talk to and I guess sell jiu-jitsu to? Is it the kids, or is it the adults, or is it going to be 50-50?
Well, I think that's part of it. I mean, in our community, we have a way of doing an introductory program that I think is really important, because I don't think you should just have people blend into your class. I think it's something that it really, to be able to have a a conversation. Just having a child blend into the class is way too casual. It has to be something where, I know it can be hard for school owners to do this, but having a block of time where you can have have a brand new student, have one-on-one attention, where it's that they're getting introduced to your school. You're talking about how your school is not just about learning how to, grapple with a jacket on, but really we're a school that develops life skills in students. And this is the way that we do it. This is a good little tip for your for your listeners. I don't give kids a white belt when they first start my program. They have to earn their white belt. And I tell the kids in our first lesson, I say, belts in jiu-jitsu are not given. They're earned. This black belt I'm wearing, this black that I'm wearing, I've worked a long time at in order to get to this black belt, right? So every belt in jiu-jitsu is earned. And in fact, for you to earn your white belt, you have to do something for me. Because we talk about respect and what respect means in the introductory lesson with the students, and I say, well, what does respect mean again? And the kid says, oh, treat other people the way you want to be treated. And then I say, okay, great. Well, who should you treat with respect? And then the kid says, you, meaning me. And I'm like, yeah, that's important, but there's someone else here in the room you should probably treat with respect. And I point back to the parents. I'm like, oh yeah, mom and dad. I should treat them. Well, how do you treat your parents with respect? Well, the best way of doing it is by being what's called a first-time listener. You do things the right way, right away. And that's really your first lesson in jiu-jitsu, is that I'm going to give you this sheet of paper. You're going to take this home, and you're going to practice first-time listening. Bring it back with us for your first group class, and I'm going to award you your white belt. If you don't bring it in, I won't give you your white belt. And kids always bring it back in. But it's actually setting that conversation. It's really a value conversation, because what is learning how to wrestle with a jacket on worth? Not much. What is making your child's future brighter by developing a philosophy of living, by developing a growth mindset, by developing grit and self-discipline and empathy? What's that worth to your child? That's worth a whole lot more than the small amount of tuition you're going to be paying per month. So it's really about having that conversation both with the child and with the families, but then having something that's just not lip service paid to that, but it's something that, like what we do is we have mat chats that every week the kids have a mat chat that's, around those words like courage or discipline or honor. What do those words mean? And then there's an assignment that goes along with it. So the school owner can use that as a way of developing this conversation about, our school as being like a finishing school for kids. And I think that's critical for school owners.
I like the idea of having a mat chat and kind of having it scheduled, and it has a topic. How do you keep that from going to that Charlie Brown style of the kids are staring there at you talk and they don't pick up anything? Exactly.
Well, I think it has to be something that's age appropriate, and that's one of the great things about having someone with a master's degree in education as part of our program that's actually went through this, is that Brandon and myself have really worked through the best ways of being able to address this and making the mat chats interactive and not just, a lecture, but asking the kids questions about what does this look like? Or, how could learning to escape the bottom of cross sides teach you about grit, about being mentally tough?
Yeah.
Is that comfortable being underneath of the bottom? Does it feel good being underneath when you're being squashed? So all the kids can relate. Yeah, it sucks down there, right? So it should be something that, and again too, it's not. Again, we have to make sure that we're not becoming that instructor that really loves the sound of his or her own voice, but it's got to be short and succinct. And again, for us, we want to help the school owners by having that done in advance. It's already done for you. You just call it up on a tablet computer, and your staff reads it off to the kids, and boom, it's done. Because there's a lot of heavy lifting that we've done for school owners that I think it's something that if you were to try to reinvent all these things as far as systems and curriculum, I mean, you could spend the next 10 years and you probably wouldn't be ahead of where you're at if you just were part of our group. So, yeah,
it's a really cool thing you're doing here. I think it's it's definitely a wise investment for anybody who has a school and they're looking to, I guess, take it to the next level, to just say something that's pretty.
Well, and again, for us, it's like, we realize it's an ongoing relationship that we have with our school owners. And it's something that we really want people to feel that it's not just going to be something where they join, I hit a magic button, and then 150 students show up in their school. Man, it's a lot of work. And if anyone is like saying it's not a lot of work, or they've got the answer, I'm going to pull back this curtain and all the answers are hidden behind my little secret paywall, that's a joke, man. It's like, it's hard work, and it's smart work. It's not just about teaching all your classes. It's about like thinking about what's most important and what's the highest and best use of your time. So again, that's something that, for us, we work really hard. Like, we're filming more curriculum next week. We're always updating, our systems. We have like a whole autoresponder sequence. But again, that's for people that have already joined our program. And, again, it's something that, again, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of noise in our space. Even now, it's like people are like starting to come around with ideas about, teaching kids. And I've seen some of it. Some of it's pretty good stuff, no doubt. But again, it's a one-off. And so we talked about this as well, Byron, is that we're actually doing something for your listeners, that if they wanted to kind of check out and see if this is something that they want to kind of get involved with, we're having like a little sampler of some of the content. I actually have a DVD that I made with Tom Oberhue, who's a great coach. He's another educator from Portland that helped me out with this DVD a few years ago, and it's all about teaching 4 to 7-year-olds jiu-jitsu. And it's actually got a whole like bunch of games and ideas. It has also, in this package that we've made for your listeners, it also has a manual. I think it's like 25-page manual about like how to structure your classes, mat management techniques, energy breaks, life skills discussions, those sort of things. What's also kind of cool is, with this package that we have, I also have a 20-minute consultation session with me. So I can get on with a school owner and just talk to them about what they're doing in their school, give them ideas. I don't do high-pressure sales. I mean, I'm a school owner. I've got a lot of other things going on. But for me, at my stage in my life, I'm not going to go open up 25 schools. I'm not going to I'm doing other things that for me, it's like far more interesting as far as sideline work goes. But for me, I really want other school owners to have the 20 years that I had, to have the last 20 years where I could raise my beautiful daughters, to see them graduate happy and healthy, and to be well-adjusted young kids, but also to be present in their life, to where that, I think that's really what we want. We want to have a school that really runs well, that we're delivering great content to, that we really have a sense of that we're developing great students. But a part of that is that you have to have that support. And a lot of school owners have gotten great support on how to teach adult jiu-jitsu and nothing about how to teach kids. So that's really what I want to do. And this little sample thing is really kind of giving people a look at, because when you peel things back and you look even at the DVD, you'll see there's just tons of content there. And when I take people through even our full-fledged community and our website, and they see what we do, it's like it's a no-brainer, because there's just so many hours, like years of development into this, so that these school owners can really have a crack at really making their school what they want it to be.
That's awesome. It's a great tool to have to develop your kids program. Like you said, there's no answer that do this. It's easy. Here's your 225 students.
If someone's telling you that, if someone's telling you, like, get 50 students, like with this special social media app, they're selling you things, man. It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would have like 1,000 students. It's a tough business.
Yeah.
And it's only getting tougher because there's more people entering into it, and it's something that it's something where you have to have as many tools as possible to guarantee your success. And you only have so many hours in a day. And, if you start, creating life skills curriculum, or, you're trying to adapt your adult program to your youth program, or try to come up with drills and games, pretty soon, years have gone by and you're in the same spot that you were in originally. And this is different. This is like a different way of doing it. My professor, Saulo Ribeiro, who does not heap praise very often on things, he always says that I'm the kid whisperer, but I don't know if it's true. I can manage a class pretty well, and Professor loves what I do with kids, and that's kind of what this all started as, is me trying to contribute to the Hibera Jiu-Jitsu Association's youth programming, and we just kind of agreed that it's best to open this up because there's a lot of good content there for school owners, regardless of affiliation. So,
and that's one of the things I enjoyed the most with that video, is that the audience can go check out, watching how you run the class, how you control the class, the tempo, the things that aren't necessarily, this particular game or this format. It's how you're interacting with the kids and how the class is going, and the environment that you created. I think that's great. And there is a lot of competition out there for what the kids are doing, but I don't really think most of it is other jiu-jitsu schools. Like you're saying, you're wanting to expand this. Most competition is going to be the karate school, the soccer club that they might join, ballet, or just the iPad or playing video games. But again,
but if you think about it, like again, if two parents, I don't care if you've got Naga swords all over your wall and you've got gold medals and all these things from your kids program. If the parent goes in and they see the karate school that has a life skills curriculum, and they go to your school and they see that you've got those medals, but yet you're just talking about, how to pass the guard to the kid on day one, who are they going to choose?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate, but it's something that it's my vision that, a jiu-jitsu school should have these things. And when you have them in place, especially with jiu-jitsu, if you combine those systems that the karate schools have, life skills and, ways of doing introductory lessons and enrollments, and even the marketing things that some of them do, along with what we have in terms of content, man, that's a no-brainer then. So the kids are going to learn realistic self-defense that they can test. They're going to have fun every class because kids love to grapple. I mean, they love that. It's so much fun, and it's like interactive. They're getting great outdoses of exercise. They're not grinding away doing a kata over and over again. It's like, which one am I going to choose? But again, it's got to be appealing on a few different levels, and it's something that I really think that jiu-jitsu schools have a great opportunity. And again, it's something that just to get people started, I think it's something that again, there's a lot of info out there, but it's something that you have to look at as an ongoing process, because it's like your jiu-jitsu game, right? If someone says, I'm going to teach you an unstoppable guard pass, well, who's it going to be unstoppable to, right? There's hyperbole everywhere. And I think it's important that, the smoke and mirrors have to go away in many ways. I mean, it's like, I've been literally at my school, when a kid doesn't wash their hands in the bathroom, I can hear when the pipe doesn't charge, because I've been in those four walls so long. And I tell the kids to go back in and wash their hands. They think I'm a Jedi. I just have been in that space so long that I know every creak and every noise that goes on in that place. So hopefully I can be there a few more years, which is great. And I still love teaching. I love being on the mat. I love interacting. I love watching kids grow. I love training. I got guys going to the Master Senior Worlds. I mean, it's awesome. It's a great lifestyle, and it can be done. It's something that, but again, I think, if you're a jiu-jitsu school and you're not teaching kids, you're trying to swim without your legs. If you have your kids program, then you've got, all cylinders humming, and you can really make a go of it, because we're a small business, man. And even if someone says, oh, you got 300 students, you're doing really well. 7-Elevens gross more than my school does. We are the smallest of small businesses. We are cottage businesses at best. And so, to be able to have a profitable, school that meets your family's needs, that allows you to make a good income that an attorney might make or a physician might make, is possible if you're teaching kids. But if you're just teaching adults, you're only reaching a little sliver of the total market. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's not. I would say most of the people that be interested in this are gym owners, but a lot of people are teaching kids classes as an upper belt, and they're saying, the school owner says, "Hey, would you want to teach the kids or run the kids program?" That's perfect. the kids you're impacting, it's worth the investment in yourself to learn.
Well, I mean, and I have people that work within our group. They have bigger schools, and they've delegated that to their. I have some purple belts and brown belts, not even professors, but they're working in their program and they're killing it. I mean, I had this guy in Florida. He just posted about like some marketing that we did for him, and he's got added like 20 students over the course of like 8 weeks to his program from just some simple stuff that we do for him. And again, I think it's having that ready made. In other words, okay, write your curriculum, write a couple life skills mat chats, that are good, that are like, won't have the kids rolling their eyes, that, and make a few assignments that the kids can take home and do a part of their homework assignments, right? I mean, you start doing that and man, time just adds up. And again, I think it's something that if people really kind of see what's possible, they can really get it going. And again, it's not rocket science, but it is different. And again, whether it's the teaching on command or all these other things, there's a different way of doing it that can really be helpful. And that's the way I'm going to be of service to people.
Wow, that's awesome. I definitely am happy to help you get this word out here. It's an awesome program, and I'm happy to have you come on here and share it, and happy we're kind of teaming up together and delivering this information to the schools. I think this is really going to help the long-term growth of jiu-jitsu, worldwide and locally in your city if you're implementing these techniques and doing these things. If you want to have the school, I interview a lot of people, and a lot of them say, I started jiu-jitsu when I was young, or I started martial arts when I was a kid. And if you want to have the kids that people are interviewing in 20 or 30 years from now, the big names in the sport or the people who are making a big difference, get them as kids.
Well, well, again, you're gonna have the whole conversation.
Yeah.
Even nowadays, the generation of kids coming up are the new world champions. I mean, they didn't start when they were 22. I mean, they didn't start it like in their 30s like I did, right? I mean, these kids are kids growing up, and they get switched on to jiu-jitsu, and that's all they want to do, man. And it's like, I think to be able to ignite that passion in someone at a young age is something that's what we all want, because we love this so much. We see what it can do for people, but to be able to impact a kid like that, I mean, to give them that superpower, to give them the superpower of jiu-jitsu. I mean, it's really an amazing process. So yeah, we're really excited about it. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll throw that link up for you as well, for Byron, so you can share that with your listeners. And again, it's discounted. It's normally like $200 that we're doing that, but for your listeners, we're taking it down to $99 for them to get it's an online video course. They get to download the manual, and they get some time with me just to talk shop. Again, no obligation. You can just check it out and see how it works for them.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Couldn't endorse it any stronger. Definitely, I guess if it's not for you. If you don't have a gym and you don't have any kids or you're not involved in that, don't worry about it. But if you're looking to, strengthen your kids' program, or if you have it, if you feel it's strong and you want some tips, these things make huge differences in
yeah, exactly.
lives.
I mean, again, $99, I mean, if you just get like 3 ideas, which, you'll get that in the first like 10 minutes. So you watch the DVD. I mean, about managing the energy of a class. I mean, just that is gold, because, this is my saying, you can't control a group of kids. You can only control the environment. So you have to be the master at manipulating the environment, of kind of taking the pulse of the class. Are they out of control? Are they bored and yawning? Well, you have to do different things when you see those signals. And if you don't, then you're going to be frustrated, or you're going to say, kids can't learn jiu-jitsu. This is not for me. I'm going to go back to teaching Barambola. All right. So, it's got to be people that look at this as being an investment. It's an investment in your school. It's an investment in your school's future. And I'm talking about teaching kids. Forget, the product. It's really about, if you can get kids involved in your program, I mean, it's going to your competitor pool would be better. You're going to have longer term students. And I mean, I can't kick people off the mat, man. There's kids that just love to train. I mean, and we all know that. We all know people that have been a part of our, schools forever. And to be able to give them that gift is just awesome. So
Yeah, or you could, the alternative, Korbett, is to do what I've done when teaching kids, fumble through it, not do a very good job, and have the kids not learn jiu-jitsu very well, and have me get frustrated. You figured out everything, all the tricks and all the effective methods of teaching kids, and now you're sharing that. So I greatly appreciate that.
I always joke that, and it's true. I mean, I don't have all the answers, but I have the email addresses of some of the best guys on the planet. So it's like, whether that's technically or just, there's people that I begged, borrowed, and stolen from, like Professor Tom Oberhue in Portland, Professor James Popolo, my Professor Solomon Shanji, who were both in their teens when they started jiu-jitsu back in Brazil. Matt Jubera in Colorado. These guys have just got giant brains when it comes to jiu-jitsu and teaching kids. My friend Chris Blanky back in Ohio. All these people are just, amazing guys that are really awesome at being able to kind of coach and teach people. So, yeah.
Awesome. It's been great talking with you again, Korbett, and I really appreciate you coming on here, sharing some tips, and definitely opening the door up for people to learn more.
Thanks, Brian. Have a great day. Great speaking with you.
I want to thank Korbett Miller for coming on the show, and really excited he's willing to share that his program with the audience at a discounted rate, and we're kind of working with him on that, and so a little bit of the money that he gets will go towards us and kind of help each other out, but really just excited to have him on. I really am behind him for what he's doing and trying to promote kids jiu-jitsu, and it's also a big part of it is making your school stronger. I asked Rolly Delgado, how do you make a strong school, and what are the key points behind that? Because I went to his school and I was really impressed with it. He goes, good jiu-jitsu, have a good jiu-jitsu program, have a good kids program, and then have some sort of a cardio style kickboxing thing if you can get someone to teach that. And different people come for different reasons, but kind of that mix of the three has really been a lot of success for him. And if you look at Korbett Miller, the kids program is super strong and is like it helps, financially the school get very stable. I imagine most of the listening audience is adults and we're already doing jiu-jitsu, but to bring in more people as kids to do jiu-jitsu, when you hear about, some person, this person is a multi-world champion black belt, a lot of times they started as a kid, and that's really what's coming through the system, and we don't know who's going to be. It doesn't really matter, whether this kid's a world champion or not, but really they're going to get a ton of benefits from jiu-jitsu. So I really want to try to grow kids and jiu-jitsu down the road, and I think that Korbett has the same mission, and it really helps all the schools that are doing it, really stepping up their kids program. So thanks, Korbett, for jumping on here with us. Had a great time talking with him.
Yeah, I just remember back in the day, kids programs were, non-existent. Most schools, would be lucky to have a couple kids. And, some of these programs or some of these schools now, like Korbett Miller School, and I know, Justin Rader having the kids program at Lovato School. I mean, just have huge amounts of kids in the program, and it's great. It's just growing jiu-jitsu, and it's just going to be people training, that much more, not counting the health aspects and the athletic aspects that these kids are going to learn. It's just incredible when you can grow kids programs like that.
Making a difference in these kids' lives. I think we all agree to that. Gary, looking at the article this week, I'm excited. It's an article from the world of judo. It's at judocrazy.com, and I think we could share a lot of common things, and this one will relate well to the competitors. 5 common mistakes in weight cutting.
And there's a lot of mistakes in weight cutting.
Oh, I'm sure, and I'm sure when I used to cut weight, I've made plenty of them. But it says, it's talking about, competition judo. It says an estimated 82% of practitioners are trying to cut some weight. And so you're talking about losing between 2 to 5% of your body weight. And 40% of them are losing more than that, 5 to 10%. So people cutting a lot of weight out there. Jiu-jitsu is a little different. A lot of times in jiu-jitsu, you're weighing in shortly before your match is starting. Not always. You might be able to find some places where they let you weigh in the day before, and the weight cutting could be different. At the lower levels of jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't really are stressing about making weight cuts, pick a weight that you could make. You don't want to get, DQ'd and not be able to compete. They might say, no, you're actually in this weight class and let you compete at the higher weight class. But you got a lot going on that day. And to have your weight be like the big stress, it's kind of nice if that doesn't need to be one. But high level stuff, definitely in judo, it's there. People are cutting weight because why? Because why? Why? Because
they want to be
it makes
bigger,
a difference.
They want to be strong.
Yeah, bigger and stronger than their competitor. So if you could have 10 pounds advantage or 5 pounds or even just a few over your competitor, that's an advantage. So the first mistake on here, I think it's the one that is probably made quite a bit, would be sports drinks. And yeah, you think sports drinks are going to be great. These people are athletes. They're cutting weight. They need to be somewhat hydrated, but you don't want to be too hydrated. That's really what you're cutting is water weight. But sports drinks, they want to help you with your electrolytes. They do have some salt in there. And the salt really can sabotage your efforts to cut weight. It makes you retain water. So avoiding some sports drinks, that you're trying to avoid salt here, and that's kind of a recurring theme. Fruits and vegetables is the second mistake. It talks about having fruits and vegetables as a healthy diet, maintaining healthy weight, but they're not really going to help you lose weight for a competition.
Yeah, and they go on and talk about, with that fiber, the amount of fiber in there, it's going to stay in your intestines longer. So it doesn't pass as quick. It just stays there. And
yeah, so I think that's another one that it just seems like, I should be drinking sports drinks and I should be eating lots of fruits and vegetables. But that might be a mistake. The third one on the list, and we'll put a link to these in the show notes because we're definitely not reading everything they say about these, but the omelet for breakfast. So now we're transitioning from just cutting weight to you're traveling, you're at a hotel or somewhere like that, and you're trying to find something healthy to eat. You look at the omelet. You might have one of those omelet little bars or whatever that the guy will make your omelet for you. You put in some stuff. But really, in that situation, you don't know how much salt's going into the egg unless you could request no salt. And yet again, the salt is going to sabotage some of your weight cutting efforts.
And then let's say you're staying in the hotel and you decide not to have the omelet at the breakfast, because you can't talk to the chef about the salt. What else do they normally have there? We go back to number 2, fruit. So you definitely got to be careful there. You never know what you're gonna have. At your breakfast table there at the hotel room.
Yeah, and then the fourth one here is food on the airplane. It's going to be food with a lot of preservatives and additives that are going to help you not lose weight or cut the weight. There's a difference between losing weight and cutting weight. Cutting weight, you're kind of dehydrating yourself. Losing weight's more of a long-term process. Some of these are just looking back. If you're traveling and competing and cutting weight, the fact that you're not cutting weight at home is a challenge because you're on the road, you're in the air, wherever you happen to be floating around. It's going to be tough to control your food. And so you really have to be smart about planning ahead a little bit and say you don't have some food, looking at a menu or looking at a couple different places to eat and saying which one of these places is going to provide me food or nutrition that won't sabotage my weight cutting efforts. And also keep me fed. You do have to have that food energy in your body. Going down the list here, Gary, dehydrating too early. They're talking about like in the morning?
Yeah, well, not necessarily the morning, Byron. Basically, what the author's talking about is, maybe start, cutting back on your water, a week ahead of time or 10 days ahead of time. And, that's, way too early to start cutting back. You need those fluids and, cutting back that quick or that long of time is not going to do your body good.
Yeah, it's I think the big tale here, or the big lesson to be learned here, is if it's your first time cutting weight, it shouldn't be while you're competing. Maybe set up a little mock weight cut situation a month ahead of time or a few months ahead of time and say, okay, on this certain date, I want to hit the scale and be, 10 pounds lighter or whatever, and then go through all the motions of trying to cut some weight and experiment with that and get there, and then get on the scale and see what you did, and then go roll and see how you feel and see if it was a good move for you. Just the idea that the first time you're cutting weight is at your tournament and you're really struggling and stressing your body a lot, is not a real big advantage. I think that's what a lot of wrestlers have a good advantage with cutting weight or staying at a healthy weight that they want to compete at, because they're doing this a lot as younger, basically as children and young adults, cutting weight and going through this process on a weekly basis almost. They become masters at controlling their weight and competing at a certain weight or level of starvation sometimes. And it's just, it's impressive, but it can, in my experience, suck the fun out of competing.
Yeah, it can definitely suck the fun out of competing. That's the part that's not fun, cutting weight, getting down to your weight. But you make some good points about, you need to practice, cutting weight. As you practice, you get better at it. You get the timing right. You'll start feeling a little bit better on the mat. Your first time that you cut, if you do everything, incorrectly, or your body's not taken to it, you're not going to perform very well. You're not going to have a lot of energy and strength on the mat. So, definitely, practice cutting, beforehand. You definitely don't want to have your very first time, at a big competition you never tested out before, and you just go out there very weak and, end up getting smashed. So definitely, practice it and see what works best for you.
Yeah, I remember many years ago cutting weight, and I had it down to where I got on the scale the morning of the weigh-in, and I was 2 pounds heavy, and I said, okay, 2 pounds is, and I don't remember what it was. It was 30 minutes in the sauna, and I had already figured out where, I think it was in Dallas, where the sauna was going to be and all that sort of thing. So I get 30 minutes in the sauna and go hop on the scale, and perfect. And I think that really took away a lot of the stress as far as, will I make weight? The answer was, yes, I'll make weight, and here's how I'm going to do it. And I don't have to worry about that. So, I really, this is an interesting article. It definitely, if you're cutting weight, it could help you out, just considering these things. But I don't know if cutting weight for the newer competitors is always a wise move. I think losing weight, if you have a few extra pounds to lose, and you're looking at the weight class, and you could go down a weight class if you lose 5 pounds, that would be awesome to compete with the smaller people. It's a good move. Drop that 5 pounds of extra weight you're carrying, or 10, or whatever it could be. If you can do that, keep it off when you're done. Perfect. But your first tournament, to try to cut a bunch of water weight and then try to compete, you might be a little dehydrated, or you might be a lot dehydrated. If you're weighed in right before you step on the mat to compete, you're going to be dehydrated. And it's different, obviously, for judo, but a lot of similarities going on. We will put the link to that in the show notes. You can go check out the article if you're interested in cutting weight and avoiding those mistakes.
Byron, I am so happy this week, and it's not just from being on vacation. It is because we have a mat tail this week, and I don't have to figure out how to make up some crazy non-published audiobook.
Oh, your lucky day, Gary.
It is my lucky day.
Let's roll the mat tail.
This is Mat Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The stories might be funny, unfortunate. It could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Mat Tales.
Saturday is one of my favorite days of the week because of Saturday Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I make it all the time unless I have something going on. This Saturday, I had a lot going on, but I had arranged my schedule perfectly to fit Jiu-Jitsu. I had a lot to do. I would still be able to go make it to train at noon. The first thing I had to do was go to the driver's license branch, so I woke up extra early, made it there, and made it back in good time. When I got home, I had to drive my daughter to work. As I dropped her off, I noticed my gym bag was not in my truck. I could still make this work. I had an 11 o'clock appointment for my oil change, so I raced home, grabbed my gym bag with my gi, and threw it into the truck. Then hot-rodded it to the Lube Express, making it there just in time. Lube Express did not disappoint. They were quick, 20 minutes there, and I was thinking I had enough time to stretch before warm-ups began. This is when I ran into a bit of road work, so I created my own detour to save myself time. This is going to set me back, but the construction would have cost me dearly. The detour ended with me hopping into a store parking lot and going around the back of the building. Just as I pull into the parking lot of my school, I look at the clock and I had done it. I had arrived just a couple of minutes before class started. Perfect timing, unbelievable against all odds. I wasn't going to have time to stretch before class, but that's okay. I would just jump right into the normal class like most students do anyway. As I got closer to the school, something began to catch my attention. There were no cars in the parking lot. I pulled up to the school anyway, put my car in park, and I felt isolated from my team. What was going on? I got my phone out. I opened my calendar, something I had not had time to do this morning. I was so busy. And seeing scheduled on my calendar, no class, competition this Saturday. I had driven all over town, wasted a bunch of gas, created a masterpiece of a scheduled morning, all for nothing. To sit in my car outside of a locked door with beautiful mats and nobody around. I always go to Saturday Jiu-Jitsu unless I have something on my schedule. Or maybe the entire team has something on their schedule.
This has been Matt Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may in fact have taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Matt Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your tales to bjjbrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories.
Thanks again for sending in a Matt Tale. If you have a kind of a crazy, funny, or wild story, jiu-jitsu related, type it up, send it to us at bjjbrick@gmail.com. Be happy to have your story become a Matt Tale. Not all stories actually work out for us, but a lot of them have so far, and it's been a great way to kind of get more audience participation in the show and have a lot of good times doing it.
Yeah, and you'll become my best friend from getting me out of having to do an audiobook. So please, for my sake, send in some Matt Tales.
Yes, for Gary's sake. I want to thank everybody who's shared the show. The show, this is episode 200, and we're going strong. You know, episode... I don't know, you go back 10 episodes, we were doing strong. We had what we were happy with for people listening and that sort of thing. And this Brick's, trying to stay afloat. We're trying to actually do more things. I think it would be neat to go travel and go to a tournament or two each year and just get out and meet everybody, and trying to get Gary and I to do that. We're hoping to do that sometime soon. Raising funds helps out a lot. But recently, somebody, and I don't really know what's going on, somebody has shared the show, maybe talked about it on another podcast, maybe sent it out in an email, and we've been getting a lot of downloads. So our last month's downloads were almost triple what we were averaging, and it's just been incredible. I think somebody with a significant audience has mentioned us, and what's happening is people are downloading like all of the past episodes. There's 200 now. So people are going on and downloading like 100 episodes and listening to those, and then going on and getting the next 100. And it's just been crazy. It's not been one particular episode standing out, but it has been a lot more traffic and a lot more people listening to the show. And so thank you. If you're new to the podcast or listening to this episode and you're like, yeah, I joined it because so-and-so had it in their email blast or mentioned it on their show, and you could tell us how that happened. We like to know. But otherwise, we'll just keep smiling and talking to you guys the same way we have. But definitely appreciate all the new people that are listening to the show, episode 200 here, and it's just great. I think we do a good job with the show. We work hard on it, and somebody out there has recognized it and shared it. I've been trying to figure out how it's been done, but I don't know. So thank you for showing up, guys.
I personally think it's I did put a picture of you out there on the internet, just a close-up picture of your face. And I think that's what's happening. A lot of people are seeing that and like, man, that's a good-looking guy right there. And, going back and downloading all the episodes. So, I think part of that has to do with me posting your picture there online, Byron.
I think that you might be partially right on that. Like, they think, yeah, look at that guy. Boy, he must have a good voice. Because which even that is lacking in the quality phase, kind of nasally voice, but I think that picture's only helped.
A lot of people are saying if he can do jiu-jitsu, they're saying if he can do jiu-jitsu, I can do it. So you're helping a lot of people start there also. So you're an ambassador to the sport.
Well, thanks. It's an honor. It really is an honor to help encourage people and to help people stick with jiu-jitsu or try jiu-jitsu or get better at it as we reflect on this episode 200 landmark, Gary.
Episode 200, the landmark.
The landmark.
Speaking of episode 200, we had one today. We're up to episode 201. Next week, we have Rickson Gracie black belt, Eddie Fivey on the show from Saratoga Springs, New York. He's going to be on the show and talking about the Rickson Cup coming up. So definitely make sure you tune in next week. It's going to be an awesome episode.
Yep, it's going to be a lot of fun. Already done the interview, and it's a totally unique tournament. They have your typical jiu-jitsu tournament. They also have a self-defense tournament, which I had no idea how that would even work. And also Rickson will be teaching a seminar. So really it's going to be a great time. This is one of the things, if we could, we would like to go. That would be an awesome experience to make it to this. Maybe next time, Gary. But, we're talking about supporting the show. Patreon has really been a great support of the podcast. If you want to, just keep it quick here, if you want to support the show, check out the link to Patreon where you can support us per episode. It really means a lot to all the people who are on there. They've saved the show once before. They've helped make the show a lot better, and that's a lasting effect. So thank you, Patreon supporters.
Yeah, we appreciate each and every one of you. Like Byron says, we wouldn't be able to keep this show going without a little bit of help from you guys. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. One more thing. I keep wanting to throw in things again and again here, but it's been months, Gary, since we've had a review. We kind of stopped asking for reviews on iTunes, but they're so much fun to read those. I think the show is kind of promoting itself in other ways, but the idea of having iTunes reviews does help people find the show and get exposure. If you want to write us a review on iTunes, we would love it. We would love to share that with the audience. If you can make it funny, that's even better. And just throwing that out there, because we haven't asked for it for probably 6 months. I don't know how long, but I get like a little report. How many reviews you get each month? And it said 0. And I look back and it said 0 the month before that too. So I know we're out there listening, guys. If you feel like writing a review and helping us out, you may not be able to help us out on Patreon, but if you want to write a review on iTunes or wherever, jbrick@gmail.com, maybe take a screenshot or send us what you wrote, and we'd be happy to read that to the audience. It's been a lot of fun. We've had some definite funny reviews on there. And check them out because they're funny and they're on iTunes. You can go read them.
Yeah, we actually, we're promoting getting reviews so much, a few years ago that actually we had didn't we have a contest like Reviewer of the Year?
Yeah.
I remember when we did that. And I remember Nathan Hadley won it. So, definitely get your reviews in, and maybe if we get enough of them, we can have another contest or something. So, send them in, make them funny, and we appreciate the support.
Yep. Check us out on social media. We're Facebook, YouTube is our growing social media outlet. Facebook is one you can give us a holler, and we'll both be there responding and having a good time with you. And also on Twitter. And we also have a podcast, which you're listening to right now. So thanks for checking out the podcast.
Yeah, we definitely have to mention we have a podcast, even though you're listening to the podcast.
It seems a bit redundant.
Some people forget about that.
It does seem a bit redundant now you say it.
And the thing we really appreciate, like Byron said earlier, tell all your friends about us. The best marketing we can get is you telling your friends that you enjoy the show. That definitely means a lot to us, and we want to be able to keep getting more and more listeners each week without your support of marketing for us. So thank you.
Yep, thank you guys so much for being here with us for the 200 episodes. We'll catch you next week for episode 201. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.